Hello, my name is Elise Castle and I'm one of the platform engineers here at CTDS. Today I'll be walking through how to install a Gen 3 instance via Helm on your local laptop. For this tutorial, I'll be using Kind on my local MacBook. Before we jump in, please make sure you visit our docs.gen3.org site and look at the prerequisites page. You'll need things like Kubernetes and Helm installed before completing these steps. Alright, to kick off this tutorial, I'm going to start in Docker Desktop. This is my preferred method of deploying containers. I'm going to click on Settings and Resources. And here I'd just like to point out that I like to add some additional CPU and memory to Docker Desktop just because we'll be running a lot of microservices. Alright, now we can start out in the terminal. First and foremost, you'll need to install Kind. So on MacBook, I'm just going to do that via brew. I'm going to Control-C out of this because I already have it installed. All right, and next we will want to start our Kind cluster. So I'm just going to paste in that command. And we need a little bit of a customization instead of just using Kind create cluster because we require 443 and 80 with these extra port mappings. This will also be posted on the docs site. But I'll Control-C out of this for the time being since my cluster is already created as well. But you can see if I do a kubectl get nodes, that node will pop up and it acts as a one node cluster. All right. Next, we will need to install the Ingress controller. So I'll paste that in. This can also be found on the docs site, but we're just applying this resource here. I'm going to Control-C out of it because it's already applied, but we can check on the health by doing a kubectl get pods in the namespace Ingress nginx. And we can see this pod is running here. If it wasn't running, I would do a kubectl logs with that namespace flag, just to see if there's any relevant logs that will help me with my troubleshooting. All right, before we install Gen 3, I'd like to walk through the anatomy of our Helm charts. To walk through the anatomy of our Gen 3 Helm charts, we can look at this repo. We can go into the Helm directory here. In this directory, you can see a list of a bunch of different charts here, these each representing one of our different services. And if we scroll down, you can see the Gen 3 Helm chart will be the most important one because this will turn off or on any of the other services. So it is considered our umbrella chart. So if we click into Gen 3 and we look at the values file, we can see a global section that we'll dive into a little bit later. But if we scroll down, you can see where all of the services are enabled or disabled. When we install this chart, we're going to be supplying our own values.yaml file, so whatever is defined in that file will just overwrite whatever is default in our Helm repository. So if we wanted Ambassador enabled, we don't need to supply that because that's already enabled true, but if we wanted to turn it off, we would just set enabled to false. Also, please note that if you wanted to configure some different things for Ambassador and you're using the Gen 3 Helm chart to deploy Ambassador, to see a full list of configurable options, go back out to the Helm directory and you can click on Ambassador and click on the values.yaml file here. And this will show you a full list of options that are configurable for our Ambassador service. But that's a little bit more than we're doing today. So we'll just focus on deploying this Gen 3 Helm chart. So to start out with, we're going to scroll down and we're going to run these two Helm repo commands. This will add the Gen 3 repository to our local laptop. All right, now that that's completed, we can go about actually running our Helm upgrade install command. To walk through this command, the first Gen 3 is referencing the Helm installation name, which we're calling Gen 3, but this could be anything. Then this Gen 3 is referencing the repo name we added here, which we're calling Gen 3 as well. And this last Gen 3 is in reference to the umbrella chart that I showed you in this Helm directory. So we're actually installing that Gen 3 Helm chart. All right, so I'm just going to copy this command. Before I actually run it, I'm going to use a different values.yaml file. You can see what I'm going to use for this tutorial here. So to walk through a couple of these values here, I have adjusted the host name just to be elise.dev.planx.net and to override the default host name. I've set dev equal to true so that we can have Postgres and Elasticsearch running locally. For portal, I have set specific resources, but more importantly, I have set this image tag. We're using the repository data portal pre-built with tag dev. This is helpful for local deployments just because it takes less resources to get portal up and running, and it's quicker to start up. Our portal image uses MPX to build, and that can take a little bit of time. So just for local testing, I like to use tag dev. But again, I would not recommend using this for a production deployment, as this does not allow you to set the data dictionary, and we'll need that data dictionary for specific data that you'll be uploading depending on the schema of your data. But for now, we're just going to go forward using this. For fence, we're going to set mock auth equal to true. This will allow us to access our commons without having to log in. Again, don't use this in production as this will allow people to bypass authentication. All right, so I'm just going to run that command and supply it with the actual path of my values file. All right, so that's now deployed. And you can see revision 9, I've already had Gen 3 running on my laptop. But if I didn't, that would just say revision 1. And here, everything's already running. When you first run this command, it will take a little bit of time for everything to come up healthy, just because of all of the DB create jobs. So if things look like they're not running, just go get a cup of coffee and come back and everything should be running for you. All right, so now the next step we have to do in order to access this on our laptop is to add elise.dev.planx.net to our Etsy host file and map that to localhost. So we can do that just by running this command. And now that we have that added to our local host file, we can actually see the ingress resource here that's created, and it's using host elise.dev. All right, now that our ingress resource is created, we can try going to elise.dev.planx.net. So I'm just going to visit the site. It's going to take a second for the commons to load, but you can see once it loads, it signs me in automatically as test due to that mock auth being set to true in the values.yaml file. And we have our commons up and running. For the next video, I'll go over how to get rid of this not secure error and then how to load in some data to your new data commons. I'll also go over how to populate the Explorer tab and how to configure Workspace tab.